A pleasant good afternoon to members of the media and the listening public. Bermuda's rapid economic expansion eased during the third quarter of 2024. After adjusting for inflation, the economy tapered by an estimated 1.1% year over year. Economic contraction in the third quarter was a direct result of increases in imports of goods and services and contractions in household and government expenditures. In corn prices, gross domestic product decreased by 1.4% year over year. In contrast to the third quarter economic performance, the first quarter GDP estimates have been revised upwards from a 6.6% increase to a 6.8% increase. And second quarter estimates have been revised upwards from an 8.7% increase to a 9.5% increase. Consumer spending in the third quarter declined 0.6% year over year to $825.8 million. Construction of services increased 0.6% year, reflected in higher expenditures on services related to vehicle maintenance and repair. Spending on non-durable goods fell by 1.6%, influenced primarily by decreased spending on clothing, footwear, and alcoholic beverages. Spending on durable goods contracted 2.5% due to reduced spending on new and used cars, furniture and furnishings, and major household appliances. Employment income in the third quarter was 6.5% above 2023 levels. Employment income in the following industries increased in the third quarter of 2024. International business was up 8.7%. Hotel and restaurants were up 8.5%. Banking, insurance, and real estate was up 6.7%. Business services was up 10.6%. Wholesale and retail was up 2.8%. Public administration and defense was up 3%. Construction was up 4.5%. And transport and communications was up 15.3%. The third quarter growth in employee remuneration in these sectors is positive, and income levels continue to outpace pre-pandemic income levels. The island hosted 66,920 air visitors during the third quarter of 2024, up from 61,432 in the third quarter of 2023. Estimated expenditure by air visitors increased to $139.4 million from $111.5 million in the third quarter of 2023. Government final consumption declined by 1.6% during the quarter, driven by lower expenditures on insurance, wages, and professional services. Investments grew by 10.9% to $208.2 million. Investments related to construction rose by 5.1%, while investments in machinery and equipment increased by 17.3% due to higher agriculture and industrial machinery imports. The external balance of goods and services, Bermuda's trade balance fell by 7.8% to $352.5 million, as payments for the imports of goods and services outpace the growth of receipts for the export of goods and services. Exports of goods and services increased by 10% during the quarter, partly due to increased revenues related to travel and other services. Imports of goods and services increased by 26.6% as payments rose for business, transportation, and travel services. The imports of goods rose by 40.3%, with increased imports of fuel and machinery. Bermuda's business ecosystem remains robust, and total local business registrations increased year over year, bringing the complete business register to 4,003. During the third quarter of 2024, 48 new local businesses registered in Bermuda. The third quarter economic performance highlights that Bermuda's economy remains robust despite easing growth. The government will continue to execute the initiatives outlined in the Economic Development Strategy to ensure Bermuda experiences sustainable economic growth and development. For more information, please review the Q3 2024 quarterly GDP by expenditure and balance of payments and international investment position publications available at the Department of Statistics online at gov.bm. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. At this time, we welcome questions from the media.
Good afternoon, Minister. Dr. Patterson with Bermuda Broadcasting.
Thank you for your update on Q3 results. So you mentioned there's been a decline. Is this at all a concern for you? Is this the trajectory that you expected us to be on, considering the growth we've been having in the previous few quarters?
It is not a concern for the government. The government anticipates that annual growth will remain positive for the year 2024. You will see that the first and second quarters have been revised upwards. That is extremely positive, and we've had rapid growth in the first 6 months of 2024. The decline is clearly understandable, where we had an increase in imports in the third quarter of 2024, but it's nothing to be concerned about. The economy remains robust and is still continuing to expand on an overall basis.
Sure. So my colleague, Gary Foster-Skelton, recently did a piece basically explaining how GDP, these numbers that are given to us by your ministry, can be somewhat skewed because a majority of the sectors where Bermudians are employed, blue-collar workers, their median income is not kept up with the rate of inflation, and therefore it gives the impression that the economy is doing well, but however, it's not being felt in their pockets. What's the ministry going to be doing to address that?
So first and foremost, the data that we collect in the annual employment survey will indicate that the median income for Bermudians has increased, and what we will see is that salaries across multiple industrial sectors is actually moving forward. The challenge that we have regarding the inflation levels in Bermuda is a systemic challenge with our high cost of living. Even though when you look at the consumer price index, you will find that inflation is easing, the cost of living remains a challenge in Bermuda. That has been notable by majority of households in Bermuda expressing their concern with the cost of living, and the government will continue to put measures in place that actually increase the purchasing power of the residents of Bermuda. And also you will find in this budgetary process where the government is removing fees and taxes in a number of areas to do what I said, which will be advance the purchasing power of residents.
Okay. Do you ever intend to instill or revise how the data is collected to see who is doing well in the economy and who isn't, just to get down to the nitty-gritty, so to speak?
I think there can be appropriate statistical measures put in place to actually capture how households are doing. We are in the process of doing a household income and expenditure survey. That data collected will provide us with more in-depth details of how households are actually faring. But the indicators that we have in front of us today are indicators that measure economic growth and economic progress.
Sure. And just in your conclusion there, you mentioned some new strategic initiatives as far as the Bermuda's economic development strategy will be rolled out. What's first on your priority list?
We have developed the economic development strategy, and we have the priority areas that the, what I could say, the certain organizations that are focused on economic development are actually focused on. We will be rolling out a document which will highlight the progress that we've made in a number of areas. But it's still 5 key areas that we want to ensure that we cover, and that is the retention and expansion of businesses that are currently in Bermuda and building out those industries that we already have a competitive advantage in. We will focus heavily on strengthening small and medium-sized enterprises, the business ecosystem that actually supports them, and we will be developing a national entrepreneurship strategy so that we have a clear strategic approach to how we better support small businesses in Bermuda. We have converted the BDA into a FDI agency, and they will be more strategic as to how they attract foreign direct investment in Bermuda. We will ensure that we review our business ecosystem to make tweaks where necessary so that we have a business environment that allows businesses to thrive, and we will double down on investment in people, ensuring that we have the skill sets able to power our economy.
Thank you. And just lastly, I've received secondary information that since the minimum wage was introduced, certain employers within the landscaping and construction industry have revised their industry standards, so to speak, or revised their market value wage per hour to be lower than what's normally expected. Some say that that is, somewhat unfair to Bermudians, those working out. I wondered if the ministry was aware of this situation and if you had intended to do anything to stop that kind of practice.
So we haven't received any of those reports. I'll ask persons to make their complaints directly to the Department of Labor, where we can have a proper analysis of what were the remuneration levels prior to the implementation of the minimum wage and what are the levels after. But we will also, in this fiscal period, be progressing the minimum wage. We put out a policy paper to say that we were going to progress the minimum wage every 2 years. We first implemented in 2023, and we're now in 2025, and we expect on progressing the minimum wage in June of this year.
Would you say it's wise to set a market value on hourly wages for certain industries so that people aren't disenfranchised going forward?
These are some things that we actually consider, whether we have a sectoral approach to minimum wage implementation. I think what we really positioned the Wage Commission landed on is to set one statutory standard, but it is something that we can ask the Wage Commission to actually consider whether sectoral approaches are actually needed.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jessie Hardy from the Royal Gazette. I wondered what your biggest challenge was looking forward. What do you see as sort of the headwinds as we go into this year?
The biggest challenges remain the cost of doing business in Bermuda and the cost of living in Bermuda. That is having a negative impact on our overall economic performance. Our aging population. We have a rapidly aging population, which means we're going to have symptoms which negatively impact our economy as a result of that, whether it be shortages in our workforce. We have a huge number of individuals who will be exiting our workforce through retirements, and those individuals need to be replaced. But as our economy continues to grow, we also need to ensure that we have the human capital that can actually support a growing economy.
Right, thank you. With the change in administration in the United States, we see President Trump rolling out all sorts of fiscal policies, including new tariffs. I mean, is there anything that the government is particularly concerned about or keeping an eye on?
Yeah, we are cautious to the changes that are happening in the United States, especially around the reduction of income tax levels and corporate taxation,
right,
as well as the increase in tariffs and the trade wars. The trade wars, from a global standpoint, do not benefit the world, and we will monitor to determine what will be the actual impact on Bermuda and our inflation rate.
Okay. And I noticed there was an increase of 3% in the administration and defense categories.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering what that was about. Is there an increase in spending on defense in Bermuda? Or?
Well, that's typically the category used for public sector employment, and so defense will be regiment services, but it belongs to the majority of that will be administration, which will be public administration.
I see. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. There are no further questions from the media. Do you have any closing remarks?
Certainly, the Bermuda government will continue to execute on our economic strategic initiatives and strategic plans. We want to increase the government's ability to support local businesses as best as we possibly can. As I indicated, we will have a focus on strengthening small and medium-sized enterprises in Bermuda, as well as ensuring that we maintain a robust business ecosystem that actually allows businesses to thrive.
Thank you, Minister. With that said, that concludes the press conference. Thank you all for attending and have a great day.